the collectors are getting it more than the government. I was opportune and privileged last year for somebody to ask, said they want to get me a brand new vehicle from the factory that is in Germany. So I was opportune to go now and ask how much is the clearing fee. You cannot imagine to clear a brand new Land Cruiser in Sierra Leone is $12,500, which is in when you convert it is 296 million in Sierra Leone. So when I told the people said, Bishop, we cannot do that. We can give you part of that money. So that is why I ended up buying a second hand instead of a brand new. All those monies collected will not go down to the government. Another thing here we need to understand today is what is wealth? What is wealth? Wealth refers to the abundance of available possessions or resources encompassing both tangible assets like money and property and intangible assets like good health, social connection, or even time. You see, wealth here, I want to say, my brothers and sisters, even the Bible does not disqualify wealth. But I think it is the way we do it to collect this wealth. The assets, like good health, even if you are wealthy, but you are not healthy, your wealth will drain down. Why? You will always be to be cured. Social connection. There was a man in our country, Sierra Leone, he hailed from Connaught. In the 70s, during the days of the first Republican president, Dr. Province Stevens. So when Province Stevens went to Connaught, they were in a very big hall. This man went to him and said, "Look, please, sir, whenever I'm coming, I don't need anything from you, but I just want social connection. And when I'm talking to you, just make as if you are, nod your head as if you are taking note of what I'm saying." So he went there, the hall was jam-packed. People were sitting there, very quiet. This man went straight to up the stage. And he beckoned to the man, he bowed down to his ears, and President Stevens was just nodding his head, nodding his head there. And after that, that young man got very much wealthy. So whenever he visited the days of the Lebanese, where the Lebanese were the social class, they are the richest people. Whenever he moved to a Lebanese man, he will say, "When I was up there with the president, I was recommending you that you are one of the best people." Then that man will back. Then he moved to another person. So that was how he got wealthy. My brothers and sisters, social connection can help us to do everything. But also here, the church across various denominations generally support the idea that wealth should be an emphasis on ethical considerations like social justice and care for the poor. This often translates into support for progressive taxation and a belief that wealth comes with moral obligations, including contributing to the common good through taxation. And what are the key themes and perspectives? Wealth creation and responsibility. Many Christian denominations acknowledge the potential for wealth creation to be a positive force, reflecting God's creative nature and contributing to the betterment of society. However, this is often balanced with the need to avoid greed, exploitation, and neglect of the poor. Social justice and taxation. In the recurring term, the recurring theme in Christian ethics is the obligation to care for the poor and vulnerable. This is often linked to the idea of a just tax system, which is seen as a way of redistribute wealth that provide essential services. Progressive taxation. Many Christian teachings, particularly with taxation, where those with greater financial capacity contribute a larger proportion of their income in public needs. Sometimes it is unfortunate, even where the churches requesting people to pay tithe. People that are getting more money, that's 10% for them to pay. It is very, very, very much difficult. Those that are paying very little resources are the people that are paying the actual tithe. Like my salary, when people are talking, my salary is less than, take home salary is less than $100. As a bishop in Sierra Leone, an Anglican bishop in Sierra Leone, less than $100. And the government of Sierra Leone, the NRA, is knifing 500,000 euros from that 2 million I'm having. So it's so unfortunate, it's so sad. I thought for 20 years as a teacher, 3 weeks ago I received my benefit when I taught for 20 years. How much was that money? 18 million euros or 18,000 euros. So all these sort of things you can generate, but for them to do the actual thing, it is difficult. Biblical perspectives. The Bible, particularly the New Testament, emphasizes the importance of paying taxes. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and are often cited in this context. However, these passages are also interpreted in light of Jesus' teaching on compassion and care for the marginalized, which can lead to call for just the equitable taxation. The Catholic social teaching. Catholic social teaching provides a comprehensive framework for understanding wealth and taxation, emphasizing the dignity of human person and the comment, good, and the preferential option for the poor. Documents like Renom, Nugerom, and the economic justice for all address this issue directly. Concern about wealth. Some Christian perspective express concern about potential for wealth to lead to pride, corruption, and neglect of the poor. These are recognition that wealth can be distraction from spiritual priorities. Consideration. Churches and religious organizations are often engaged in charitable work, social programs, and advocacy for policies that address poverty and inequality. They may also be involved in discussions about the ethics of wealth creation within their own communities and in the wider society. In essence, the church approach to wealth and taxation is multifaceted, emphasizing both the potential for good that wealth can represent and the moral obligations that comes with it, particularly in relation to social justice and the needs of the poor. Let me pause for now and wait for any further questions.
Please, the hands of applause is very complete. What I got
from the Church of the Province of West Africa,
he defined what taxation is, and he'll show us what taxes are doing for us. And then he went forward to tell us, are we doing what the taxes are meant for? In his he also told us that, look, tax collectors get more
moderator for today is the Reverend
than what they report to the government.
Godfrey
And for me, I realized this when I was a young Nigerian sent to Nigeria. I was asked to go and pay for resident permit. So the bishop at Leeway asked me, to go to the rector and collect the money. So what was collected was 5,500 naira in Nigeria. When I went to the tax collectors, I paid 5,500 naira. I was given 500 naira flying receipt. So 5,000 went into their pockets, and then 500 naira went to the government revenue. I went to the rector and complained. He said, my son, keep quiet. That's what I want. So tax collectors get more. I think this happened in Liberia as well. We listened to our brother, and we said he also defined wealth. He said wealth leads to what? Destruction. But is it always the case? Anyway, when time for time and question and answer, he will have himself to explain very well whether it's always the case that wealth leads to destruction. Then we call on our brother to do his own presentation. Reverend Henry A. Samuel, President, Catholic Council of Churches in Sierra Leone.
Reverend Henry Samuel is the President of the Council of Churches in Sierra
Let me
Leone.
stand on existing protocols and say good morning to you all and greetings from the church and people of Sierra Leone. I always say when I come to this podium that I'm part of you. I'm your in-law, married to a fine woman. So I'm no stranger here. I've been coming to this place every now and again, maybe twice, 3 times a year. So I'm happy to be among my own people. First of all, my Lord Bishop have already laid the grounds, so I will not need to go into definition and things like that. But one thing should be clear, that when God created the world and established wealth, wealth was meant for all of humanity, not Christians alone. So you will understand that in the world view, there are so many non-Christians that are wealthy. So wealth is not restricted to religion. There are so many people who don't even believe in the God who gave everything to mankind, but yet still they are still rich. A story is told of a young man, a professional. During his struggling days, I just recap what Bishop was saying, that it is so difficult to have high earners to pay their tithes. During his struggling days, he used to go to church regularly, pay his tithes regularly, with no problems. Fortunately, God elevated him, and he was now having a lot of money. And then he looked at his wealth and thought, now, how can I be giving all of this 10% to the church? So he went to his pastor and said to his pastor, look, pastor, you know that I'm a faithful tithe payer in this church. But now my income has become so much that I'm finding it difficult to pay 10% because it's so much money to pay 10%. So how can you help me out of this? And then the pastor turned to him and said, you know, it will be difficult for me to tell you to reduce your tax. So what I will do, I will pray for you so that God will reduce your income. That you will not find difficulty in paying your tax. So you see that even for us Christians, we are stingy with wealth. So as I said, wealth is not restricted only to Christians. We should note that Jesus was not opposed to the payment of tax. He was not opposed, and even encouraged his followers to pay tax. You remember, if you look at Matthew 17, 24 to 27, you will see that when they were asked to pay the temple tax, and they were without money, Jesus commanded Peter to go. Since he was a fisherman, he knows the art of fishing, to just go and take and catch a fish, so that from that fish he will be able to get something that will fulfill their legal obligation. So Jesus was not against the payment of tax. Remember when they asked him the three questions that we had this morning about if it was lawful to pay tax? He asked for the coin they were using, the currency they were using during that period, and he asked whose inscription was in it, and he said those famous words: render to Caesar the things that are Caesar, and to God the things that are God. So Jesus was not against the payment of tax. We should also realize that the early church was a communal church where wealth was freely distributed. Wealth was freely distributed. If we look at Acts 4, 32 to 37, we will see that the early church, we are told that all of them came together, and those who had brought what they had, and those who did not have benefited from those who had. So you see that wealth was not a thing that was hoarded. It was a thing that was fairly distributed amongst all the early believers. Remember, to the point that when even Ananias and Sapphira, they came to deceive the early church, and their punishment was death. That shows that whatever God has placed in our hearts to give as Christians concerning our wealth, we should do it out of a sincere spirit. And also, as Christians, Paul encourages us not to be lazy. Not to be lazy. And we see that his example in Acts 18, verse 3, where we see that he used the skills and talents that God gave him as a tent maker to be able to meet his needs. I'm sure that he met the needs of others, including his obligation to the state. And some of us, even though we are involved in pastoral work, we are also involved in other secular employment or trades or skills that we use to create wealth. As Bishop was saying, especially in our country, the salary of pastors, including us heads of churches, is so small. Most of us will earn below $100 a month. Most of us, including myself standing here, we earn below $100 a month, and we're expected to pay taxes. And so what we do, we also involve in a tent making projects. So we don't sit idle. Like me standing here, apart from being a pastor, I'm an insurance professional. And I know, doing my agency business, the amount of tax I pay to government, even as a pastor, doing my own small business. So Paul is encouraging us as Christians that we should not be lazy, and he spoke even against idleness. That the talents that God has given us, because as I said earlier, wealth was created for all human beings. We should be able to harness those talents, create wealth that we can use for ourselves and even for the greater good. If I can go presently in Sierra Leone, religious bodies are not required to pay tax for their religious activities. They are not required to pay tax on their offerings and things like that has to do with their religious activities. However, churches do contribute to the payment of tax. First of all, we employ people. and so we contribute to income tax. We contribute to property tax. We contribute to business tax. Those of us who have various businesses in our church, including running of most of the private schools. However, there have been some criticisms of the church which we need to look at in the way we handle wealth and in the way some of us even evade taxes. The criticism has been that people perceive that some religious leaders are living a luxurious lifestyle, using the church money to do that. That is a real criticism. We cannot get away from it. It's something that some of us have been criticized of. And even those of us who work very hard outside the church to get our own income, the moment they see you around, maybe with just a nice car or a nice suit, they think that it's the church's money that you are using to live that lifestyle. So that one has been one of the criticisms that we envisage. And because of that, at a point, government was thinking about even taxing the church for its religious activities. But we kicked against it, and that was not done. Also, the see majority of our members living in poverty, and the church does not seem to be helping them. You know, you see the big structures, you see the pastors living in nice houses, driving fine, beautiful cars, and the rest of it. And then you see these poor members going to the church, asking them for tithes and offerings, and the rest of it. And some of them are in dear needs. But the church does not, these are real criticisms that we have, does not seem to be helping them. Also, people also criticize that even some of the institutions, some of our churches open like schools, educational institutions and the like, even the children of our own members are not able to afford to attend some of these institutions. So it's like we are creating wealth without thinking about the welfare of those we are serving. So, that's also a problem. I'll propose some solution, if I can, for us to look at how we can manage our wealth as a church or as Christians properly, or even how we can be more, we can take a more proactive role in meeting our tax obligation. First of all, I'll say that we need to become more open in our financial accountability. I hear of churches that where the offerings are collected, they are just wrapped up and taken away to be counted or accounted for privately. I don't know if that is true or not, but I think as religious people, we need to be more open in our financial responsibility. We cannot be calling on government to be open and be transparent if we as churches also don't practice what we preach. You see, we have to think about that. And we must be seen to be engaged in more community and other activities that will uplift the lives of the communities we serve. We must be engaged. I know that we have been doing a lot in the area of education, in the area of health, in the area of advocacy. We have been doing quite a lot in that area. That's a traditional area, but I think it should be our duty, if I can say it, because now the world is going, it's a global village, everybody is trying to do something to improve on a lot of others. So I see no reason why the church should not be engaged in revenue generating activities that will uplift the communities and the people they are serving. Also, that we advocate for our government to be more open in the ways our loans, our taxes have been spent. Government takes a lot of loans, and these loans are becoming burden on our nation. They are burden on our nation. You see, that when you come and you hear about the billions of dollars some of our governments have taken as loans, and you see the facilities and the lack of facilities around us. Look at your road coming from clay to you start wondering what is happening. Lack of so many basic facilities in our nation. I think we as advocates should call attention so that government will be more open in explaining to us how they spend the resources of the people, because it's not their money. Unfortunately, sometimes we blame revenue collectors, but let me say that they are no better situation than us, because they are only there to collect revenue and hand it over to the government. They don't control the government on what to spend with those revenue. But we see you as the face of government, because you are the ones that are asking us to pay taxes. So you have to face the tune. Also, that the church take more interest in seeking for a just debt forgiveness for our government. And these taxes, this forgiveness can be used to address issues of social and infrastructure. But you will say again that in Sierra Leone after the war, our debts were forgiven. We will started in a clean sheet. I'm sure that the same thing happened to Liberia. Our debts were forgiven. And now we're in more debt than we were before. And you want to ask, what did they do with all those debt forgiveness? Where did all the money go to? I always say that the money that was spent in Sierra Leone between 2002 to 2007, that money was not spent since our independence in 1961 to that period. Wow. But what do you have to show? Nothing. And then I think this is what we as religious leaders should call. And we are talking about the Zacchaeus situation in Luke. Well, we should, I think Zacchaeus really was a good man. He decided voluntarily to ask that he will give back. So if even we want now to advocate that all this debt burden should be taken off from us, all the suffering that Africa has suffered in the hands of Europeans and Americans, that should they should give back and help us to recover. We should also ask ourselves, are we good managers of our wealth and our resources? God bless you.
Please give him a resounding round of applause. So you see, Reverend Samuel, he did his presentation in a very statistic way. He began with the church. He started with the church, where the church in the church is found 40. He brought everything out. Our schools, how do we run our schools? The first question he asked, won't touch me. We build schools and our children, those who go to the churches, they cannot afford to send the children to the schools. They send the children to Omokoro Community Development School. And then our own schools we build, those who pay the tithe, and they cannot send their children to the school because they cannot afford sending. That won't touch me seriously. Thank you, Reverend. He also said, wealth is for everybody. And so no food for this man. All to work. Don't go about how it is. As a pastor, don't depend on what the church gives you. Make sure you dirty your hands. You know, people look down on those who dirty their hands in Nigeria. If you dirty your hands, it reduces you to anything. But that is good to reduce corruption. He sent it on the government. People who pay taxes, their taxes are not used for the intended purpose. People do different things. And then the last thing he said, it was very laudable, you know, that every one of us must practice what we preach. If you are a tax collector, you collect your taxes. He exempted those who collect taxes, the tax collectors there. We're clapping for him that they collect the taxes and hand the taxes to government. Very good. It was said that was a good thing. But he left something out. And we need to hold tax collectors too. So thank you very much. Please give me a round of applause again. Now, we want to call on our cathedral, the dean of the cathedral of the Episcopal Church, Reverend Father A. William. Thank you for supporting.
The Reverend Father A. Williams.
Very reverend. He's very reverend.
Very reverend.
Very right.
Right reverend.
But it's not right.
Very reverend.
But the whole right side is here.
The bishop is there listening.
He's not there.
And he comes from he's the dean for the Trinity Episcopal Cathedral
Let me
here.
first register my thanks to the Faith Justice Commission for having me selected. I must admit that when I got the invitation, I sort of interpreted the word panelist in a law form that threw me off balance. But then after I have put my note together and listening to all these esteemed leaders, all these wonderful speeches and all that they did, every time they say something, I'm like, oh, they want to go to work. I'll tell them I'm sure. So I just thought to extract maybe one or two things quickly to be able to expand on as we continue this process. Taxation and ethics. We've gotten a very good definition of these two, but I'd like to give a little emphasis on the word ethics, even though we've understood the word taxation. I'm looking at the ethical aspect of it, especially for us as church leaders, as we collect these various dues and whatever that are in the form of taxes to be able to run the church. And if I were to give a definition for the word ethics, I'd like to borrow the definition that says, well, do what we say we will do. You say you collect it for this purpose, it should be done for that purpose. Are we really doing? That's the question I will come to next. Now, the church will emphasize the word stewardship. We are all called, tell our members that we are all stewards. And because we are stewards, there are three things that are expected of us to move the church forward: giving our time, giving our talent, and giving our treasure. But today, our emphasis is on the treasure aspect of our stewardship, paying taxes, giving the money. And the money in the form of our taxes and dues may be tithes, pledges, offerings, or in some way we say benevolence, just doing good at will, to people. All of these things are done in order to move the church forward. But how is this being done? It is being done, of course, for the sustainability of the church. And after the church receives, the church is also to pay for government. Now, we use the word government here in general, and most time when people use the word government, they refer to it as their property. Some of our leaders say, my government. It is not your government. It is your administration. The government is the people who you are called to govern. And so we who are being governed are to pay to the government or to whatever administration that is there, rather, to be able to move things forward. But the thing about it is, and many of our speakers have also said that, what are we receiving in return as the church when we give to government, we pay this tax? I know there, what's the word that is used at the court when the church pays, the church is tax-free, church exempt, tax exempt, something like that. Duty-free, yeah, and then you are getting taxes and all that. Those are some of the benefits they say, but I'm not seeing that much being done. Because they see that the church is a charitable organization, and besides, they are not there generating income to make business or what have you, so they do this duty-free and what have you. But the thing about it is, how much are we giving in return? In as much as we give to government, There should be something, maybe what we call, what, tax return. I see that practice in other countries, even when I meet the US, and see that every little thing you buy, you pay tax on. Even if you sneeze, you might end up paying tax on just easy. You know, that kind of thing. They do this because I noticed also that that's why you have to move America one in the direction they're going. They emphasize on that on taxes. And as they emphasize on it, they use it, and the people who pay the taxes get something in return.
Yeah.
If you notice with anybody, like even the way the border, they always pay to get receipts because we have to submit receipts in order to get some return. What are we doing in our country? Our countries, our respective administrations? Are we getting anything in return, especially as a church, to move the church forward? Look at our little council is struggling with the council churches. You know, major financial challenges we've had. But if the administration was giving back to us what we were giving, you know, definitely we'll be able to be our school seal. Because we are here at the voice of people. Sometimes we refer to the council of churches as the fire breaking council, because that is whenever there is problem in the forest or when some of the problem when it's done to us on the side. That shouldn't be. But if we're really effective with the tax payments or whatever to be ethical in executing these, we'll not be facing the kind of problem we've had. So you see the church in time past, again when he talked about Saki, I said, oh, Bishop, you going to my thought. Then when he talked about the era of the early church coming in, paying, you know, generating incomes, using their properties, selling them, and bringing the funds to the church to sustain. We see that very happening in the Episcopal Church. Episcopal Church have got lots of properties there, acres, several acres. And we have had buildings, even if you go up on, what you call it, Rado Street, on the old Echo side, got down, plenty was rented for us, plenty ministry. And all the people who come there, they've had a lot of properties. Actually, university, but I just give up the address. You know, what the question there is, how are they really being sustained? You know, that should be able to bring a lot to the church because financially we are not there with all of these. But all these things were done by people who have seen the passion to give to the church for the church to move forward. And we encourage our church to do that. So as we empower our people, why do they also stay in benefit? And I heard that also being said. A fellow came from the States and he said, look, he decided not to be a Christian anymore because there was this pastor who had this big car. He had cars upon cars, and then he saw his members running to catch the train or running here to yellow, and would not give them this, even though they are in the community. So it's like they were being reached, and then the others were just being there, and, you know, being empowered, you know, for the poverty. So the church have a big stand. Let's look for even example, CRS, the Catholic Relief Service. Even though the Roman Catholic took a big chunk of money, at some point they're like, they are in charge because we are Catholic. You know, the Catholic Church has been given a lot too because we're seeing that it is a universal church. So people, all organizations, big donors give to the church. During the war with Philadelphia, we had CRS, Catholic Relief Service. It was not the Roman Catholic Relief Service, but the Universal Church Relief Service, where everybody would benefit from. You know what I mean? So I'm saying this to say that people gave, organizations gave to these organizations, and when they're giving, we are also to get the benefits in return. Let's look at around the world. My Secretary General and I were just discussing this, that all the money people give to churches or organizations, they are from churches. The same way for the Catholic thing, you know, the general church, the universal church, they give, and they use the same money to come and invest. I believe that our brother there, Dr. Java, also with his whatever those he's giving, is the same church money they give back to us. You know, in return. That's the kind of practice we need to carry on. And that would encourage our people to give and to benefit. Simple thing like even practicing in the church. You die. And then everything I expect you to pay every time for the burial. After you have paid all of what you owe, you go to the church.
So some churches will say, well, okay, they might have been very active, and when you say you were in good standing, and Episcopalian in good standing, or Baptist in good standing, or Methodist or Lutheran, meaning that you have been really given to the church, not only your time, but your talent and your treasure. And so when you die, the church plays a part. Some family will say, well, we know the church standing, we do our part, or whatever the church can do, fine. Say we play the church part, and so forth. So, giving in return is necessary. You have the ethical aspect of what we're talking about. Doing what you say you will do. Thank you so much.
Reverend Father Williams has done justice to the topic. See, please give him another round of applause. The different speakers spoke on the same topic from different perspectives. And the made us will have a rich wealth of knowledge from that particular topic that was brought before us, beginning from our brother. But then when the read is not around, Bishop Reed is not around to give his presentation. Anyway, from what we have gotten, what we have heard, now is time for question and answer. If there's any doubt, anything that you didn't understand, something that bothered you, you want to get clarity, our panelists are here, they are ready to answer. Please. Is there any question?
Comments. You have comments.
If you have comments, you want to corroborate what you have said, well, yeah, we are ready to listen to you. Maybe somebody, I see somebody adjusting glasses, but yes, come forward, please. Or I will come to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I want to say thanks to the panelists for those brilliant presentations. And looking at the topic under consideration, the ethics that has to do with wealth and taxation, this implies that if we do pay our taxes, we can also enjoy the wealth of our taxes. In context, and this is what I want to cover, in context, and I think maybe the reason why we're not growing as a country and the church is not benefiting, because it's scriptural that the more you give, the more you receive. And then we are not giving as expected. Even in our local church, we don't give about even paying our taxes to government. I heard one of the speakers talking about getting taxes, payment of taxes, and so huge to even clear a vehicle. I remember when even we want to get a vehicle also, the last government, and I called and I talked to the Director General for the LRA, and he said to me, Reverend Toll, we can only assist you when you buy a brand new vehicle with tax, with duty free, but not a used vehicle. So if you go to the port, everything that is brought into that is used, there are high taxes that are placed on it. And that's the reason why you see even the used vehicles are very expensive in our country, because of the high taxes. So, but what are we doing now as a country, as a church, or as a faith community? Are we also paying taxes? Are we offering also recommendations, even to the government, not only pay the taxes, but the taxes will come in as a form of return, also to the church to be able to do community service. We are talking about national reconciliation in our country. We're talking about healing. But if we look up to the government to do national reconciliation and healing, we are not going anywhere because we get politicized. But we as the church, we as the faith community need to take up that. And how can we do that? We got to look at our taxes. Our taxes can help us in that direction to be able to deal with a lot of those things. Now, for example, we're talking about the whole issue of memorialization now, the reburial of people and other things like that. Those are raising some sensitive issues in the country right now. And although it's a form of reconciliation, but is it done the right way? So we need to look at some of the issue of our taxes to be able to address some of this issue, working with government to make sure that we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my brother. Is there any contribution? Yes.
Let me thank the speakers or the panelists for their presentation. It's truly an eye-opener. We've learned something from their presentation. However, many times when laws on taxation are fixed and taxes are computed for different services, goods and services in the country, one of the most interesting things is that the government does not take time to explain to the people, number one, how they came to that conclusion, what informed their decision, how they computed their taxes, and why we should pay those taxes. I give you an example. If you go to the bank, you have savings in the bank. Now they would in our country 15% for GST on your savings. When you have interest on your account, the government will take 15% of that, and they will take another 15% off the interest that you receive. So the tax on your interest, your interest is you are taxed twice. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that is correct. I'll give you another example. I went to the key Bishop Scott Manga to clear a vehicle once, and I went to, they have Asikuda, you go and pay customs and excise duty, and I asked the commissioner, how did you arrive at this computation? Because if the tax, the custom duty is 20 million, and then they minus Asikuda, which is 8 million, they said that one is 8,000. And then they add that 8,000 to the cost, and then they do a 30%. I said, this is statistically, this is not correct. Do you know what he told me? He said, I don't know. I don't know how they arrived at it. Go and ask the former. In fact, the money was referring to Tommy Telomonga. He was the Minister of Finance then. Had died years ago. So as far as he is concerned, he came to the seat. What he made them do, he did not ask why we were doing this. How did you arrive at this competition? Let me go and ask that man that is dead and in his grave. I said this because as far as I know, the statistics that I have in my head, this formula is not correct. I said this formula is not correct. Show us how we got to this formula. Nobody can explain. I went to the commissioner. Nobody could explain this. I go to the Minister of Finance. So what? And the third thing is that when people see that their taxes are working for them, it will be easier for them to pay tax. In our country, if you go off country, some goods are cheaper in the provinces.
Which country, sir?
Sierra Leone.
Okay.
Some goods are cheaper in the provinces than in Freetown because we have 20 porous borders. And they offload the goods in Liberia, in Conakry, Guinea, but in the containers and bring them by road. If you bring a car to Guinea, but you ship a car to Guinea, it's easier for you to clear it from Guinea, drive it to Sierra Leone, it costs you less than shipping it directly to Sierra Leone. Yeah. So we're talking about Mana River Basin. I think the taxes in this country should kind of be standardized, but people would rather travel. He is telling me, you want to go to Ghana, you now travel from Freetown to Liberia or to Guinea to catch a plane. Yeah. You buy your ticket, it's 50% cheaper. Yeah. Than to buy it from Sierra Leone. So all those things we need to look at, and they must explain to us, these tax people, why they are doing these things.
So our brother needs explanation.
The tax people.
Yeah. So elaborate, please, Gabriel.
Thank you, all the speakers. For me, I have some fears. And I just feel that all the explanation we do, all the questions, and all the concerns we raise, nothing will change. This is my third time coming to go through such a discussion with LRA on good taxes. And every question we asked in the past, I'm going to ask here today again, because it has never changed. The reason of it not being changed, they get that information. So thank you for organizing this. But we talk about these things. It will not change. Taxes continue to continue the way they continue. The process after we explain to the court, it will not be changed then. Every time the new person comes, they look at the old trend and they say, oh, after what happened here, they improve on it. because it's benefiting them. So if all of us, bishops in Liberia, professionals, all of us, after this workshop or after the meeting, come together and speak in one voice on the tax thing, and we continue to stand by it. Coming from those that are concerned to tell them about it, something will happen. But after the workshop, we read all the good documents, all the reports, and they finish. So that's my fear.
Thank you. But it's good to be hopeful that something is going to happen. You know, for me, I have an optimistic view that something is happening. You see, in the past, to drive from here to Harvard, to my village, where I come from, it used to take me 1 week to get to Harvard. But now I can drive about 8 hours and be Harvard. So you see, something is happening, right? It's in July, but you can drive from here to Harvard without problems. So we should be optimistic. Keep talking. If you talk more, good things will happen. Praise the Lord. No, you will answer the question, don't worry.
The question I want to ask is, what happened to the government official that who paid the taxes? Yes, because if I'm a common man, you can laugh at him. But I see more government officials in this country who pay the taxes. So this is my first time in such a workshop, and I really want to know why.
So that's where it was. This is a big question. You see, according to Darius Delong, I will put it, when he was wanting to get the longer term, the legislators, they get 17,000 every month, right? And they get duty free when they're bringing cars in the country. And do they pay tax on this money? Please tell us. I want to get the payment slip.
Thank you. And let me say we are really, really excited to be here this morning about this, faith-based community. I really pray for the partnership to make sure that we can reach our congregations with the message of taxation. But also, I understand lingering questions and about how government spend tax money. Let me say this, and I will address you concerns here. We have branches of government. LRA does not promulgate tax law. It is our legislature. So I would have loved to see maybe some senators and representatives in this forum. I really would have loved, because there's a misconception. We carry on the mandate of the collection of taxes, but we have nothing to do with expenditures. And the question always is about expenditures. Right, so they who have been here, and maybe it might not be too late, maybe we can stay in one or two tomorrow, to be here. Because it's important. Tax policies are drafted by Ministry of Finance, but tax laws are promulgated by the legislature. Our mandate is to collect and give it to them. They are the one that tells you what you get, where your budget is coming from. So we need to, in the first place, engage our legislature. That's where the problem is. It's not with the tax authority. Okay, I want to clear that first. Then I will move to, somebody said the duty free. That again is promulgated in law. Right, that's promulgated in law. It's not us. It's the legislature that says, yeah, senators and representatives get import duty free up to $70 a month. That's not, in fact, there were, in some instances, there had been some problem between the commissioner and the legislature. They almost wanted to hire, sanction him or something or whatever, because he was questioning them. And they said, well, this is law. We are entitled to it and we must receive. So it's not the LRA thing, it is our legislature. Somebody also talked about large homes and large homes. Our tax law, we've been very lenient. Residential properties, there's not a single person here that can say we have lacked their residential property. And by right, we should.
Yes.
Because you're supposed to pay taxes on both residential and businesses.
Yes.
Most of the time, our enforcement actions actually go against businesses as opposed to residential. So I wanted to just clear that misperception. Somebody also talked about tax return and tax refund. And let me say that we use these two words interchangeably, but they are separate. A return is what you file. All the documents that you file with the tax authority, that's your tax return. If you get back money, that's your refund. I live in the States and I work in the States and I went to school in the States for some time. There are three things that happen when you file your taxes. One, you can get a refund. That means you have what? Paid more than you were supposed to pay. So through your filing, they have to refund you what you pay above what you were required to pay. The second thing that can happen, you end up paying more because what? You underpay the taxes that you were supposed to pay. The third thing that can happen is you can break even. That means you pay only the right amount of taxes that you were supposed to pay. So even when I worked in the States, there were some years, right? I will get a refund. There were some years I end up owing and I had to pay. And there are some years where I end up not owing, right? And I end up not paying, receiving any money. So we need to, but it's based on different tax jurisdiction. I agree with him, in the US, sometimes you are afforded credit. Like let's say I'm married to her, we part as a couple, and we have children, right? And so the government can say for each child that you have 1,000 or 2,000 credit against your earning. So at the end of the year, when you file with all those credit, you most likely will get a refund. But there are cases where you actually end up also owing because we may make the same salary, but we are not entitled to the same credit or stop and thing or whatever. So it depends on the tax law and the tax jurisdiction. So it's not automatic that when you file a tax return, you will get a tax refund. Yeah, and then somebody from the very beginning talked about tax collector get more than they, they keep more than they remake. Let me say this. Our salary is appropriated again by the legislature. What we collect, we remake. Is it true that maybe some officers might attempt to steal from taxpayer? Sure. But at LRA, we have policy in place. As I speak today, there are 47 staff members. They didn't go to collect money from taxpayer, but internally, they misbehaved. They did some things, and they are right now suspended. And the Prosecutor General is thinking about firing all of them because they had to do with some insurance, internal insurance. We're not about to collect any money for taxes because we have to hold ourselves at the highest of transparency, accountability, and integrity. Okay, so I just want what we collect, we don't use any of it. We collect and we remit it. But the problem again with corruption is that you have two sides to corruption. You have the receiver and the giver. In many cases, businesses and people who are engaged in transactional stuff, they are the one that in most cases will even approach the taxpayer. Let me give you this, and then you waive this. Or the tax collector will say, give me this, and I will waive this. But every tax that is collected legally goes to the government. The illegal tax is the one that may not reach to the government. But that's not tax at all, because you have a right to demand. If you pay $5, you have a right to demand your receipt of $5, your flat receipt. But because some of us don't want to do the right thing, we don't want to pay the right amount of taxes, we engage the tax collector to try to compromise. So we need to look at this very holistically, okay? But we have more to say tomorrow, but I wanted to address those issues. And I stand ready today to answer any of your questions because we want to form a partnership. And if we are going to form that partnership, we have to have a clear framework and guidelines so that we understand the situation and know how to better approach it. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother. You very spoke like Zacchaeus in the Bible.
But I'm more like Zacchaeus.
Yeah. So, you see, our brother has answered the question that was bothering us. But one question he left unanswered is the one of the legislators, right? That he said they are the one who makes the laws and it is legal. that they get taxes, they are exempt from tax, they go to import, diesel, all those kind of things. But they have to come and explain to us, is that you are the one who divide the cake, and you are taking your own the way you want to. We put them there, right? We put them there, and so we have the right to question them. Why is it that we are paying and they are not paying? And we pay them more, and they get more from the contribution we are making. So they sort of, according to the speakers, those who get more should what? Pay more. You get 17,000, you cannot take $1 to give the government. My friend, so anybody else want to say, please?
So let me just say, I think, like I said, we have to be comprehensive, right?
Yeah.
So this is not just about the duty-free, but I think it has to do with the whole compensation system, right? And the benefit system for our legislature or for our government official. So we need to approach this comprehensively. It's not just about the duty-free, but it's about the compensation. You're talking about somebody making 17,000, and you have medical doctors, you know, who are making 2,000 or 17,000 all their life for the most part. So it's about comprehensive compensation scheme for our government as a whole.
And so the Council of Churches will have a lot to do. There's a whole lot, a lot of questions to raise, you know. There's a lot of injustice going on here. We have to address these things. You know, we have to address these things. You get more and you don't give any. I mean, it is not fair to the common people. It's not fair. Yeah, the man from Sierra Leone, maybe it happens in Sierra Leone too.
Thank you, Mr. Moyo. Your job is easy, but you keep moving up and down. Now, I just want to ask this to the LRA again. Now, in the UK, in the UK, when you give an offering or tithes in the church, that's why they specifically have envelopes where you put your money, and then you indicate that you are a taxpayer in the UK. And then when you give to the church, at the end of the year, the church file the amount that they collected from their members that are taxpayers and submit it to government. I have known churches, I am a registered charity in the UK, that benefit from tax rebates and tax returns. I don't know why that does not operate in Sierra Leone or in Liberia or in Africa, because I know churches that they give back like £30,000, £40,000 in a year just from filing that tax receipt of the members that give. Because the idea is that the members have given tax to government before, and so when they give an offering, it should not be deducted. So why does that not happen in Africa?
Can I respond to this?
Very good.
Actually, in Liberia, you can deduct charitable contributions.
Anybody else get it?
The problem here is, there's not a single person that can say they have ever filed tax returns.
So we need to start filing like this.
Exactly. That's the point. The law says, the tax law says, if 90%, right, of your income come from employment source, that is, regular or somewhere, if 90% of your income come from employment source, you do not have to pay taxes in Liberia. If 90% of your income come from employment source, you do not have to pay taxes in Liberia. As a result, because many of us work in Liberia and just get our money from, from employment. Even at LRA, I can challenge probably 98 or 99% of the employees that do not pay taxes. In order to be able to take advantage of that charitable contribution, you got to file. It's not automatic that you just say, oh, you contributed $10 to the church, so you pay that back. You have to do your complete filing. That includes your employment, and if you also have a business like a, tailoring or a small business you may have. All right, because corporations are different because they are an entity unique by themselves, as different from the incorporators. But that's the reason why many people do not take advantage of these things, because they do not pay taxes. We do not pay taxes because the law says you don't have to. If all of your income comes from employment, so businesses pay their taxes, and some of them take advantage of the credits and the deductions. Businesses do, because for them it's mandatory, right? That they pay their taxes. For individual, it's not, and many people chooses not to pay. Like I say, probably 99% of an individual. I'm not talking about business. Do not pay income tax.
So what's the state of the church, I'm talking particularly about the church.
Yeah, the church.
How do they go about filing, or why should they file, or why should they not
But
file?
the church
Or why
does
are they
not,
filing?
the church does not file because the church is not, we do not tax the income to the church. The income to the churches are not taxable at all.
No, the thing about the difference is, in the, like I said, in the UK, when the members that give the tithe.
Yeah, but our member have to file. UK does not just take the money and give it to
So
them.
what they do is that when they give the money, they've paid tax already. So they indicated that we paid our tax. I'm a UK taxpayer, and so they indicated, and the church will now file their returns at the end of the year.
This is how it works. The individual themselves, on their income tax form that they file,
Yeah.
they will write on it charitable contribution, and they will write the amount that they give to the church. And that amount is subtracted from their income to arrive at a balance that is taxable. That's how they get returned. But if you do not file, how will the tax authority even know that you file taxes? Even if the church files with LRA and say, John Brown, Peter, and Mary, contributed this to our church, we still cannot give you credit until you file and indicate that amount on your own return. We can verify it against the church's filing. Okay, we can verify it, but you have to file and indicate that on your return.
So that's why we are here.
Yes.
Basically to educate the church that these things need to be done for them to benefit more.
Right.
Because if the members, we encourage them, we teach them, we go back and tell them, you need to be putting your tax things in order and deduct this and blah blah and file.
The charitable organization is supposed to actually
Then
file
the
returns,
church will
but
file
they
the
do
returns,
not.
and the returns will come to the church.
Yeah.
It's the church that will benefit from it.
Yeah, for charitable churches, we call it informational return, right? They're supposed to provide us information, but even most churches do not file taxes, except for those who are probably operating schools or operating other form of businesses that is not associated with their exempt status, But for the most part, that's how it's going.
Yeah, a question.
Yes.
And I need to get the education.
Please.
For example, my church is called Holy Ghost Fire Ministry
Good.
International.
Wow. For example, fire and stuff.
And I have a church, and I have about 500 members.
Yes.
And I have a income that comes on the monthly base of like 200,000. I get 200,000 just for my offering and maybe my tithe.
Okay.
Now, in Liberia, I want to know, do the churches themselves, what we raise, do they pay taxes?
Do the churches pay taxes?
Taxes, that one. Whether there's anything in the law that will say the particular church pay taxes. The church may have a school or they have a clinic, but if that church pay tax, the government.
Okay. I can get a mic and respond, please. The income of the church that comes from members' donation or contribution is not taxable. Zero. If you are running a school, you pay tax with, if you are running a school, the income that you generate, right, from student tuition and so forth, is not taxable. Because government feels that you are assisting government to provide education for the students, right? So you need that particular, we just hope that you're using that money to pay your staff and to carry out activities for the school and that individuals are not profiting from it. That's the goal. Okay, that's the purpose for the school. It's not for profit.
And also the church, people that work in the church, they pay
That's the next one I'm coming to. People that are working in the church or in the school, they will pay their personal income tax called PIT. They have to pay the taxes on their income that you pay, right? The school pays them or the church pays them.
Yeah.
They have to pay their personal income tax on their income. But the money that is generated by the school or the church through contributions or tuitions, it is not taxable because you are assisting government to provide education for our children. Even universities, the same with universities are not taxable at all.
Yeah, so then on the last time we tried to get our container for the school.
Yeah.
And they were requesting us to calculate tax clearance.
Okay.
So what that is now we want to pay tax, how do we get the tax clearance?
There's two things. Tax clearance are for tax payer. In other words, you have to be tax compliant in order to have, I think what they were requesting for it, if you imported the goods in the name of the church or the school, the way you have to apply for a duty-free privilege, right? And that tax clearance will also be the fact if you're running a school, are you paying your PRT for your employees? Yeah, your withholding tax. Are you paying that? I think that's why they were asking you for the tax clearance. Not necessarily because you were, you know, you are a religious organization or whatever. That you apply for duty-free. You write the Commissioner General and they will approve that you import certain things. But they will ask you for tax clearance, especially if you have employees, you know, that are either working in the school or in the church. Right. Because employees in the church are like you and myself. They are earning income, they have to pay taxes on that income. And many churches have employees or students working in the churches, or staff working in the churches that are not paying the personal income tax. So in order to ensure that these people are paying their personal income tax, when the school or a church brings in goods, we will ask for your tax clearance to show us that you are paying your withholding taxes on your employees.
Very clear.
Yes. And then there's another tax, what we call rental income tax. So if a church has a hall, you know, I know a little bit about the Lutheran church, they have a hall in the compound. If the church have a hall or a building that they are renting out to the public and generating money, that's not part of their exempt practice. You got to pay the rent, the tax on that, the rental income. As well as that income to be generating, you got to pay taxes on it, pay the rental income tax.
So you don't have that.
When you don't have, oh no, then if you don't have it, then you're not obligated.
Yes. I just wanted to provide an example of that.
Okay.
So in the Episcopal Church, we have the Episcopal Plaza where Echo Bank should be.
Okay.
So when we have to pay taxes, the bank, the money to also have not be able to pay taxes to all. Then whatever that our tax credit. So that's one for sure. You know, the business that we're on, to our properties we have to pay now. To the government, we have to do it.
Absolutely. In fact, we have done some awareness for future, we do awareness for churches. So let me just say here, if you have, especially for those with new congregations, right? We are available. I have done it to several big churches where they invited me to go and talk to the congregation about taxation, especially like real property. But this is what the partnership is really going to do, because we want to reach out. And tomorrow I will speak on that. You have a right, but you also have a responsibility and an obligation. We touch on that tomorrow.
Okay, so thank you very much, and I think we will get to you from the Council of Churches in that partnership.
Yes.
Because it's very necessary.
Very important.
And our people need that education to know that, because the churches, let's take for example, my church may have this amount of churches, this amount of schools, this amount, and there people are working and paying their taxes. We need to be able to have those data that we can be able to say to the government, this is our own contribution in terms of taxes, and we have to encourage our people to be able to pay the taxes.
And it gave you a voice too on the national platform.
Yeah.
When collectively we can say the faith-based community
Yes.
last year contributed this much to national revenue. It gives you a voice on the table, you know, as well. And that's very, very important for I'm a Christian too, you know, I'm an elder too in the church, so you know, I know precisely how to approach on both sides. We hate on government and Sunday and it's to everybody. When you are around, and what we can do now, even to make it easier, you come to LRA, we set you up on the platform. If you have staff working in your school or in your church, all you have to do at the end of the month is to put in the amount of salary. You can do it right from your office. You send it to LRA, and we generate everything, tell you how much the taxes are. You don't even have to sit and calculate. Yeah, you just come, you bring your laptop to our office, we set you up, you bring all your employees, how much you pay them, we set you on the platform. At the end of the month, you go to jump around $10, $15, $100, whatever you're paying them, and we generate your taxes. Some people will not be taxable, and I will talk about that tomorrow too. If you earn 70,000 or less, and of your employee, 70,000 or less a year, there's no, it's tax free. So if somebody was saying 15%, I think some taxes, no, not everybody will pay 15%. The tax is a graduated tax depending on your income. It's a progressive tax. Somebody said it earlier, I remember our speaker said that. So the more you earn, the more you pay. The less you earn, the less you pay. We will go through that, and in fact, right after the lunch, we'll go through that presentation.
Yeah. So you have two persons there to talk. I'll give Dr. Jonathan first before you spoke. Right?
So Father, I'm in the church as a pastor. I'm not an employee. And I get $400 at the end of the month. Are you saying I'm not to pay tax to the government? Because
You say you get 100, but you say you're not an employee. But
No, I'm not an employee.
you also say you're a pastor.
I'm
The
just.
pastor is the vocation.
Yes.
Right. And the church is giving you $100 for your services every month. So in that case, you have an income of $100.
If I $500.
Unless if they are saying we paying $50 for a housing.
No, it's $500.
Okay, no, I'll just use $100 as an example. Okay, let's say $500.
Yes.
They give you $500. Do they decide or designate a specific amount for that $500, or they give it to you and you can spend it at your own free way how you want to spend it?
Yeah, they want me to use it for housing, transportation.
But they have to spell it out. It has to be spelled out that the church is giving the pastor $500,
Yes.
but the church is the one that paying these bills. Because there are some people have live in pastorage, right? There's a value attached to that, but we can't tax that because it's part of their religious, what they call. But if they give you $500 at the end of the month, say, the job, this is your compensation for the month, that's an income to you, you gotta pay taxes on it.
I thought I'm in vocation, I'm free.
Eh?
And then you pay that money.
Director, what you say?
I'm saying because I'm in vocation,
Right.
I'm not an employee.
How you know you're not employed by the church to serve them as a pastor?
I'm just a called servant, I'm just a servant.
Then you are called, but you were chosen by that congregation to pastor them, or the bishop to pastor that church. So as a result, you have a job. You report to your bishop. You don't just do anything you want to do, right? You have a job, and you are being paid for that job. You got to pay. You're supposed to pay
What is the
taxes.
pastor supposed to pay?
They're supposed to pay taxes only, unless they are not receiving income. If they are doing it completely. If they are doing it completely, that's just only the income tax. If they are doing it voluntarily and they're not getting paid, they don't have to pay tax. But if you are getting compensation every month that is signed, ordained and proposed by the church, that Reverend Jala will receive $500 as his compensation for serving the church at the end of every month, you pay taxes on that.
Your government gonna be plenty of money because we the pastor, we have too many income.
But the pastor they responsible. They got pastor advisory, all the small money they can. We don't even charge you with that.
Now the conversation is very interesting now. Now there is a point we are trying to dodge. We have to go to, we're talking with the government, now we come back to the church. We're trying to turn our back to the church. The speakers raised a point and very significant. They said, we build schools and our faithful cannot send their children to schools because their poor, the school fees are so high, and the people they send their children to poor schools. What have you to say about it? Those of you owners of the churches, I will speak my own. Also, very good. My bishop will speak then I'll join him.
I'm going to speak on several things. When we talk about church, we have to be very careful. If the church is to pay, Catholic Church is one. So if the church is not everybody, so if the whole Archdiocese of Monrovia, or the Church of Liberia, Catholic Church of Liberia, that's the church. So if anything is going to happen, that tax will be paid, just one. It's different from a pastor, build his church and this particular church. No. For Catholic Church and mainline church, it's just one. So it happened in Ghana, asking churches to pay taxes. So the whole of Catholic Church, they just pay just for one. That covers for everybody.
Not necessarily. You are a denomination, but you have churches, right?
No, So we have.
But you're not.
That's where the trick is.
Yeah, but so if they are under your umbrella, right, as all of your churches located around the country, they are under your umbrella. The employees work at different sites, unless you have them on one payroll, do you? Or your employees?
The different barracks, they have their
Assigned
workers,
yeah, and that's how we go. But when they are under one tax identification number, right? One team.
Yeah.
It is possible that a jurisdiction will have all their churches register as a denomination under one tax identification number. But because unless you have one general payroll, right? If you have one general payroll, then we go by that to tax. But if they are like each Catholic church, some of them have their own schools, they have their own rental properties or so forth. When they come to file, they will use that one team for the entire Catholic church, but they have to file separately, but they will file under that one tax identification number.
For example, our school system, they are under one payroll, centralized.
One payroll, centralized?
Yeah, it's centralized. So the teachers, the NASCO, the secretariat, they pay, for each teacher, all of that.
Right.
We do remit, that.
Okay, so we will work with that. But I also know that some Catholic churches, they operate their own buildings, they have their own rental properties and so forth.
Like the halls of that we can go
right.
ahead.
Okay, but so that's why
the main point I'm coming to is about us.
Yeah.
I think the speaker mentioned it. We cannot be pointing finger, government. We should start with ourselves and clean our own house up. I think there have been instances where, as a charity organization, I'm bringing in something from outside, and then the understanding is, as a charity organization, is not to be, for business to be sold. But then there are instances we've been accused. It's not just accusation. Okay, there are instances that things have been brought, but not for the intended purpose, and they're evading taxes. That is a sin. It is a serious sin. So we have to also check ourselves. Okay, I want to make that point clear. We have to check ourselves. Okay. We cannot do that. We cannot criticize government and then we're doing the worst thing. Okay? So we should take that into account. We should set the example as a church, because we've been accused of that, and rightly so. That's why there's been, in recent times, they send it out, there's some regulations and all of that. Also, people bring in vehicles, old vehicles, you have to pay taxes on them. But what we should be careful about, people into this old vehicle business from the States, from the Uncle Sam, got an eye on it. What kind of this old vehicle? Sometimes most of it are stolen. Uncle Sam, every old vehicle that comes is there. The time will come, you will see what may happen. Kind of vehicles. Most of the time, they're stolen.
I'm not getting clear.
Yeah, that's why I don't want you to get that back. So we must be careful as Christian body, as religious entity. We cannot be involved in shady deeds. Yes. You have people doing business, okay? How sure are we? Second-hand vehicles, we must be very careful. Uncle Sam, Gad, there's something on it, they don't know what is happening. How do people who do this business, how are they getting it? They send all these old vehicles. That's watch out.
So we have had a lot. Can we get your my brother to be the last man to speak here?
Thank you very much, sir. My area of interest is how we as church leaders can have a policy statement so that we can advocate for governments to recognize the clergy as a professional cadre of the government in the country, because if they just see us as religious leaders, it stops there. And it will shock you, the government recognized students' union. They not only recognize them, medical, journalists, they even give them subventions. And we do a lot of contributions to national development in education with our hospitals and schools and in our universities. But we don't benefit much from any of the government privileges. So how can we advocate and get a policy statement or position paper so that we will just not take pastors and church leaders as nominal citizens? For example, when you go through our airport with all the bloated tax included in your fare ticket, you are asked to pay $25 coming in and going out. But there are a lot of people within government and civil society who are not asked to pay because they are given rights of service passport and other things which we don't normally have. So we are subject to a lot of variances negatively because we are not seen as formal partners in development and nation building, which we need to fight our way towards. Because if we don't, we continue to suffer unjustly from the government, which expect us to be a partner in development. And I believe that will give us the leverages that we need so that our rights are not violated and we are not pushed to the wall and people, they can just treat us anyhow. Because God, even in the discharge of some of our religious duties, pastors come under several arrests just for saying something that you think is in line with your duty, and nothing comes from it. You are detained just by just even saying a prophetic message, which does not incite anybody, even cyber laws now. So I think we need to fight so that we can be recognized as part of the professional cadre of society and government partners. If not, we'll continue to suffer unjustly, and our words will not be heeded anytime seriously in government. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for all you have said today. The speakers have done well, and then those who made their comments, they also did very well. Please let us give ourselves a round of applause. So I think, please, clap. It's not easy to stand here and coordinate things. Now, I think we have reached the end of my time presentation, so I will hand over to the chair to continue.
Thank you, Reverend Father Godfrey T. Lima, Dean of Students for Catholic Seminary. Thank you for moderating for us. And we want to thank all the panelists who made their contribution. We pray that God will richly bless all of you this afternoon. I think we have reached the point now to go for lunch. The lunch is going to be for 1 hour. Right now it's it's after 1. So we'll be returning after lunch by 2 o'clock. And when we return, we'll ask His Grace Archbishop, who is a member of this board, will be presiding and directing the rest of the program. Shall we rise now for His Grace? And we'll ask Bishop Selly, the member of the board, to bless our food. Let us pray. God of grace and glory, thank you for feeding us today with these wonderful ideas and motivating us to collaborate to serve our nation and our institutions better. Bless the food, bless our conversations, bless those who prepare so that we can do more and more for our country. This will be with Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Thank you.
And so this is how we're going to take leave of you, and we are going to resume in about an hour's time. Of course, this has been an IT Library And I've been here, Moses B. Cole, giving you beneficious foods here. So this I want to say, I want to say thanks for finding us.